Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Insurance Journal's Academy of Insurance's weekly webinar Aftershow. I'm your host, George, and joining me for the Aftershow today is the instructor for today's class. Today's class was, Can you hear me? Yes, I am listening. And the instructor is Mr. Mike Koscielny. Mike, welcome to the Aftershow. It's great to have you here, as always.
Thanks for having me, George. I appreciate it.
And you're sartorially splendid. Our audience can't see it very well, but you've got an Academy shirt on or sweatshirt.
There you go. T-shirt. I'm in. Representing.
At the beginning of the class, I was practicing active listening without even knowing I was doing it, because you almost got me. It's one of those answering machine things where it's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And you go, "Pretty good. How are you?" And the guy goes, "Just kidding," but you said, "Can you hear me?" And I thought maybe you're having some technical issues because I just introduced you. But I was like, "No, wait a minute. I'm not going to fall for it." And it was you just talking "Can you hear me?" Yes. I am listening. It's very, I didn't fall for it though. I like that. I like the way you introduced that though. Very cool. Very fun.
Yeah, it's an attention getter, that's for sure, because everybody does that. Can you hear me? Can you see my slides?
It's funny. You mentioned that this is, and I know this is part of your Born to Lead book, tenets of this mindset, this active listening mindset. How important to leadership is active listening, which you talk about in the book and here, of course?
I don't know. When I think about it, it's I have this hierarchy of sort of leadership behaviors, and it's at the core of really good leaders is the ability to listen. You work your way into positions of leadership in companies because you're effective and you get results and that, but there's a complete shift when you go from being a contributor to a leader. And that is when you're in the, I always say when you're in the trenches and you're dealing with stuff, decisions and phone calls and exceptions and all those sorts of things like underwriters might do. It's like you got to act. But when you're in a session now where you're leading a group of people, the tendency is to be the guy, right, who has all the answers, because that's what you come from. But to really be effective as a leader, you have to allow your team to sort of come to the decision that's sort of in your mind. And maybe not. Maybe it's not the best decision. That's the beauty of underwriting. There's, if it was that simple that robots would do it. It's not. It's more complex than that. At least the meat of it. The fringes is easy.
Got it.
But that listening skill is important because it builds trust. It builds the ability for someone to believe that when they come to you with something that you're going to listen and you trust what they do. And maybe I always say, come to me with two paths and then we'll talk about how we sort of get to the end then. But you have to listen effectively. And that means turning everything off, right? Don't be intent about what that person is communicating to you so that you don't miss anything, because it could be misguided and then things could blow up. And then later you go yell at them for making a bad decision, which is a whole nother piece of this. It's accountability. But more importantly, the listening skill is the one that really drives so much of great leadership. And the great leaders I worked for over my career and worked side by side with were great listeners. They were intent on hearing what you had to say. And then the ones who weren't were the ones that when you walked in the room and you started, hey, we're going to have this great meeting to talk about the direction of the company. And then they just preach to you, this is what we're doing. Well, why am I here? Okay, you can do this. Just tell us what you came up with. Why bring us into a meeting for an hour and you're not interested in hearing what we have? So I think that to me, it's core. It's a core skill, and it feeds into so many things. But trust is the one that I think is most critical. Building trust is how you gain the ability to have people take the hill, go through the wall, whatever the euphemism you want to use to describe the process of success. Trust is the key, and being an active listener is how you build it.
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree. You talk about, and I won't give all the lists of listening methods and bad listening, good listening, things like that you gave her, because I want to leave some nuggets for people to want to check out the class, because it's a great class. But In the beginning of the class, you talk about the 3 levels. You start out level 1, listening in spurts. Level 2, hearing, not listening. Like yes, dear, no, you hear what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And level 3, empathetic listening.
Yeah.
Or
Level 2 could be suicidal, or at least a near-death experience if you do it with your spouse.
Well, I was going to say, what level are you at, and what level would you like to be at? Do you like having that kind of fog up there, the hearing not listening level, or do all the different levels of hearing or listening rather?
This is the admission I'll make, and this is that I turn those on and off depending on the setting and my interest. I think this. I hope my wife doesn't hear this, but there are just some times where, like picking out paint color for the walls. I've told her many times, "Hey, do it." I have no concept of that, no style, no ability to pick things, and so you decide. But which one do you like better? And oftentimes I don't hear those things, and I probably should be more intent. But I think. Right. I think we have stages where we kind of go through all 3, but the last one, it needs to be how you do things. It really does. You need to be that focused.
I was thinking about great movie listeners, and bad movie listeners. And one great listener, actually, Marlon Brando played both kinds. I feel like as Vito Corleone, because he had to listen to the people asking for what they wanted, asking him for a favor at the beginning, and he didn't respond until he got a whole story, and then he would kind of go back and forth and listen to their answers and whatever. And then he was a bad listener in Don Juan DeMarco, because he's kind of like thinking about the Don Juan DeMarco thing, and Faye Dunaway's like, the mechanic's going to charge us $800, and he was like, I don't know, pay the guy, I guess. And she's like, pay the guy? What? $800? Is there any good or bad movie listeners you can think of? Probably a lot of bad ones, but any good ones that you can think of that were?
I think I'm trying to remember the name of the movie. It was a military movie, and the guy had kids, and they were playing basketball. It was
Great Santini, maybe.
Great Santini, and he's bouncing the ball off the kid's head. Well,
yes, yep.
Bad listener. Bad listener. Kid was trying to express himself, and he wasn't interested. He was like, just do what I said.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's funny. I was listening to you, and I knew the movie from when you.
Yeah, that's even scarier.
Right.
I know it. It's hooked up in this external drive that I've got now plugged into my ear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You gave 6 reasons why we collectively became, or 6 reasons why how we exhibit bad listening. Like, do you think we're collectively a society of bad listeners? And when do you think we got to that part? Like, I'm guessing it was something to do with the advent of cell phones or the internet, but do you think that those were the catalysts, or when did we become collectively horrible listeners?
Distractions have always been there. There's always been something. I'm not old enough to remember what it was like before there was a telephone or something like that. Not that old, but when there were like 5 channels on the television, it was a lot easier, right?
Sure.
I think these are a blessing and a curse, right? I mean, everything is instant, and we get the answer, and if we're in that mode of being problem solvers, which a lot of us are in this industry, is you immediately just jump to the answer. And sometimes I see it even with like my kids. They'll say, well, how would I fix this? And I start to explain it, and they're already on YouTube looking at a video, 50 videos, and 3 of them are wrong if they did what the video said, because not everybody's a genius to figure these things out. So I don't know. I think it's evolved over time, but I still think there were times when there were other distractions going on. I mean, the one about somebody just walking in your office, maybe that's a recent phenomenon. I can tell you, it pains me to say this, but 45 years ago, I would never walk into my boss's office without knocking and being acknowledged. Fortunately, it was like glass, so you could sort of see in there, but I would never do that. So I think it's a phenomenon today. That's why I go back to even with all the stuff that's happening around us, we can still be good listeners. And that's just offering the same sense of importance to the person speaking as to you, the listener, right? That both
Sure.
are engaged in that, regardless of what's happening around us. Just being conscious about it, I think that's why those 6 are there, because there are things that are timeless, right? Being judgmental, we're all that way. Being biased, we can be biased about certain things. I mean, there's some baseball teams that play my team that I don't necessarily like, and I'm very biased. If people talk nice about them, it's hard for me just not to shut them down and just go away.
Yeah, I'm for the 6 reasons. I was kind of a tie between ego in the way and the desire to talk. Like, your opinion can't be as good as mine. So, you made me think of when you talked about methods to improve your capacity to actively listen and be a good listener. I when I got out of college, I worked overnight at a department store chain that I won't mention, but I was on the night crew, and the night crew had a lot of interesting personalities on it. One guy would start to talk about really strange things, like he believed that there was a crystal in Atlantis that could bend metal. So not only did Atlantis exist, but there was a crystal there that could bend metal. He also believed that Bruce Lee, the beloved martial arts star, could walk through walls. And he wasn't talking about busting through a wall. He was talking about like phasing, like the Vision in the Marvel movies, like phasing his molecular density through a wall. And I was fascinated. I didn't want him to stop talking about these things. So that was keep an open mind. I was like, that was what I was exhibiting from the, but the bad listening was the rest of the staff or the crew. They could not hold the rebuttal, was the other aspect of it. They're like, I can't say, I don't want to say his name, but they would start to berate him, and he would clam up or get mad or storm out. And I was like, you guys, I mean, why would you turn off the spigot of whatever? But yeah, I mean, you could apply those to any, but I keep it open mind's a great one, because that helps you, like, even if someone's opinion is vastly, divergent to yours, if you keep an open mind and listen, I mean, you make them feel heard, and you could learn something, and then ideally they'll want to hear your opinion because you gave them the floor, kind of thing.
Yeah. At least for the entertainment value, right?
Oh man, it was
the fact that you even remember that today. I mean, that's the best part.
I can't forget it. Yeah, the crystal in Atlantis that could bend metal.
A lot of people would just dismiss that and like shut them down, and then when it came to having some really conversation about the workplace and how things are, the guy, whether his ideas were crazy to you, it didn't matter. They weren't crazy to him, and you could learn something.
They weren't.
I've always said that. You can always learn something from people.
My next question to him would have been like, how do we get to Atlantis? I got to see this crystal. But everyone's like, you stink. You're dumb. And he's like, well, I'll show you. And he walks out and whatever, like, I don't know. I don't remember the whole.
No, that's a great point. That's a great analogy to that whole situation. If you shut them down, they're not going to participate anymore. And that's a problem, I think.
Okay. Don't think about this. What is the best song, best pop song ever about listening? Listen. Do you want to know a secret? Listen to your heart. Or by Heart, or Listen to the Band by the Monkees. Go.
Oh, geez, not the Monkees.
Not the Monkees. Oh, okay.
And I think that was the second album I ever bought. More of the Monkees. No, I think Heart
was their second album. Heart's the best song of those 3 out of.
I think so. Yeah, that's might be my vote.
You also
talk about the heart, right? I mean, that was the one of the pieces of being an active, full body listener, is that you're listening with your heart too, because it may not be in the work environment, but there's still, I mean, we're talking about people's businesses and lives and that. So you want to be active listening with that, but certainly in your personal life, if you're not engaged with your heart, so I think it's probably closest for me.
I also like to ask you another thing about being a whole body listener. Like, where did you think of that? And is there a part of the body that listens better than, like, does the back listen better than the shin, or what, what's.
Well, it all starts with these 2 things with the flaps, right? That's the key. But the point is that all of that posture is very, it's very direct, right? It is. And so if you're in that place, then you're presenting this sense of I am completely engaged. It's sort of like when you're on a video, when I lean way in and talk to you like that, it's like, oh my gosh, either he's crazy or he has something to say. Yeah, I did shave. But the reality is that I think the posture creates that presence for you, that I am engaged now. The ears are doing the listening and my brain is processing, but there is no other distraction because tapping your finger, tapping your toes, crossing your legs, uncrossing, sitting like this, that's not real. The arms crossed, across your chest that's a sign that I'm not open to anything you have to say. So by your hands by your side, now you're completely open.
Got it. John Bonham, you mentioned him multitasking with playing different meters on different hands. Yeah. What kind of whole body listener does he listen to his foot, or do you think both? Yeah.
I don't know that
keeping time.
Physically, I can't do that. I mean, I can't even fathom doing that because, like, my left hand, all I can do is make a layup with it in basketball. So it's amazing to me that he had the physical ability to do that. But it would suggest to me, I guess the question becomes, that's sort of an outward thing. It's not a listening thing. I don't know how he can do it listening wise, frankly. Maybe he can train your body to do two things at once. But that's why I hate that word multitasking, because it's a joke. Most, they always say, well, women can multitask. Well, I won't argue with that because that would be a bad listening experience. But physically, it's impossible. And so I've heard it referred to as switch tasking, right? I'm going to do this and then that. And then you're going to miss something when you're in the in-betweens, right?
Right. I would think so.
I know I do.
Don't miss anything.
It's hard.
Couple quick more things. And by the way, the class is so it's interesting because it resonates with everybody, and you could apply it to insurance professionals or whomever. It's customer service. It's this class was really valuable, and I want to really thank you again for offering it. Two things. One is we've got you again in the fall, I think. When is your next class with us?
Yeah, so I've been talking with Patrick, and I created this. I did a pretty extensive article on the ethics of captive insurers and sort of the challenges that we could face. And that particularly, if you understand the captive sort of sense of things, the business owner sets up their own insurance basically for those frequent losses like workers' comp that are low value. Rather than pay the insurance company the premium, they set aside the money to pay the losses. Well, there's challenges in that. There's a lot of ethical issues associated with that are transferred to the insurance company that are now assumed by the business owner. They've never had to deal with it until they created a captive. Do I really pay the claim? Do I hold back on a claim? I mean, how am I going to deal with those losses? And so I created that, and I mentioned it to Patrick because I think it's sort of, there's not a lot of conversation about ethics in those situations. We talk about general business ethics, but this is much more specific. And my thought in creating that was that I wonder how much we really think about it as a captive, as a business that has a captive insurance company with the limited regulation, but the regulations associated with that. Do we really think deeply about, geez, we're running a little short on cash. Maybe we'll let that claim go till next year when there's more money or whatever it might be. So I have some examples in that as well that kind of talk about the challenges, because when you're the fiduciary of sort of the industry we're in, where we're collecting premiums and paying that, when the carrier is involved, the agent can say, well, they messed up, not me. You're still going to be okay. But now I've assumed as a business owner that responsibility. And I think it's just an awareness more than anything. I haven't really spoken to a lot of businesses or agents who've done captive. I think predominantly people are going to act ethically, but there's always that temptation to kind of, well, we'll let it slide, or maybe we won't pay the total amount, or because we're running a little short on cash. So
Right.
I think it'll be, I think it's important. I wrote an article as well for another industry association that does a lot of their competitor. I won't mention their name, but I own the content, so I'm able to speak to it. And my goal is to not only go through Academy Insurance, but also through the Risk and Education Alliance and the CPC Society as well, and offer the same. Just another spin on ethics.
We look forward to that. So you're in the negotiation with Patrick about that.
In the negotiations, right? I think he's okay with that. He's just trying to pick, I guess, a date. It's probably put that on my shoulders to give him some dates when I'm available, but probably in the fall. I think that's what
He'll be listening for that.
Yeah, and not just hearing, listening. Gotcha.
Born to Lead LLC. That's your company. That's your book. That's your mantra. That's everything.
Yeah. I'm doing a session or at least proposed it, called Born to Brand. So it's all about branding yourself. I mean, I'm not completely there in terms of Born to Lead. I've got a good social media presence. I do a number of webinars, work with a number of organizations like Academy Insurance and others, but now I'm getting ready to launch a podcast on leadership, and I'm partnering with my son-in-law, who is a HR professional in the insurance industry as well, and we're going to debate some of the issues. Right, there's so little information anymore available to young people moving into leadership roles or before they get to them, because carriers don't spend any time trading that. And so we're going to talk about some of those, and I've got a few vendors that I'd like to interview as well that are doing some really interesting things with technology and with data and that. So that's the next step in the creation of Born to Lead, is to do
Born to Brand.
Born to Brand.
You heard it for an Academy of Insurance Aftershow exclusive. Born to Brand.
That's right. It is. It's not been communicated broadly anywhere yet.
Well,
it's kind of daunting to think about. I've got a folder full of topics I've been collecting, and he's provided me a list. And I don't think we'll show the content. I just hope it's engaging enough that people will want to participate, at least listen to what we have to say.
I'll bet they will, unironically. Mike Koscielny, always a pleasure to have you on here. And I'm still a little, I listen to you, but I don't know. I think the Monkees one is the best of the three. Listen to the band, but okay, that's okay. We're listening to each other, and
there's only one left now, right? Mickey Dolenz is the only one alive. It's sad.
He's it. Wow, what a down note to end the after show. But hey,
second LP I ever bought, more of the Monkees.
And that was their second LP they recorded too.
Yeah.
How cosmic.
It is.
Mike Koscielny, our instructor, our expert on leading and branding now. Always great to have you here. So cool. Thanks again for a great class. Thanks again for everything. And we'll look forward to seeing you TBD, right?
Yep, TBD. George, thank you for great questions. Your follow-up questions were great. I hope others take the time to go listen to the session today.
Me too. I will shout it from the virtual rooftops. Mike, thanks again. On behalf of Mike Koscielny, this is your host, George, saying thanks, everybody, for coming to the after show. Check out the class, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, George.